right. Let's take care of this, some of this stuff together. So we'll work our way up. Whenever I'm looking at some of these, I've got like 3 or 4 classes. I always kind of like looking at the most, one of the simplest ones first. And the simplest one here is our state object, our state class. So we'll zoom in a little bit. If you can see, we've got our instance variables: name, capital, nickname, and population, just like we said on the board over there. Then we have a custom constructor where we're going to get all 4 of those items and set our instance variables equal to them. Now here's one of the things that we're going to have to finish. Hold off on it right now, but this is a way that we, maybe we might even be able to do this right now. What we want to do is, this is the compare to method, okay? This is where we want to compare this current state with another state. Does that make sense? Everybody got it? Now Trey, or somebody said you probably want to compare the names. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've got some options here. So the name of this state is in the name class. So we want something that's going to be kind of like this. If our name equals obj.name, return 0. Does that make sense? Now, of course, that's not the best way to, that's not the proper way to return, to compare strings. What's the proper way to compare strings?
Dot compare to.
Say it again?
Dot compare, no, dot equals.
You were right the first time too, dot compare to. Okay? We could say if name dot compare to object.name equals 0, return 0. Else, oops, what am I doing here? Wrong. Else, if name dot compare to obj dot name is less than 0. So that's the situation if this current object's name is before the other one, then we need to return a negative number, right? So standard procedure is to return -1. Else, return +1. All right. So basically, we're comparing this class's, or this particular object's name with the other guy's name. Mason, does that make sense? Okay. However, there's a problem. Hover over top of that error that we're seeing here. Up here. What is? Somebody read that to me.
Name can't be resolved, or its field name.
Yeah, name cannot be resolved or is not a field. Okay? You're like, what do you mean it's not a field? This is what, these are all instance variables are also called fields. It's like, yeah, it's a field. It's right up there. Okay? I'm comparing this guy's name to the other one's name. Does anybody know what the problem might be? I kind of hinted at it yesterday.
Do we need to look inside the array list? Use the array list thing?
There's not here's the cool thing. This doesn't even know about the array list. What we're looking at is the code just for this one guy. He has no idea that he's in an array list. He could be just a standalone guy, a standalone object. See what I'm saying? All he knows is that he's being compared against another object. Okay? So if you look in this whole entire class, the array list is not here. The array list is actually over in the United States class, and it's an array list of states. Somebody else? Mason, any idea why it's throwing an error? Why it's saying the name is not a valid field?
Because it doesn't know about the array list.
Yep, I want you to throw that array list out of your mind. There's no array list. How about, okay? Look up here at the top. This is, we're just looking, we have code just for one state. Da-da-da. So there's no array list in this file, okay? And there may never be an array list anywhere, okay? And let's make sure.
Trying to compare to itself.
Is it trying to compare to itself? No. What we're doing is we're saying name, which is one of its instance variables, and we're comparing it to the other guy that we were sent, his name.
The input.
Okay, the parameter here. Okay, what's wrong with that?
It doesn't know about the input that's gonna come to something.
Okay, yes, you absolutely on the right track. Yes.
Yeah.
As far as Java is concerned, the information that it's sent, this parameter, is an object, okay? The most generic object of all, okay? So the object class. It doesn't know if it's being sent a string, if it's being sent something called a state object. It doesn't know if it's being sent a student object. It doesn't know what it's being sent. So when we say obj.name, Java's like, hey, I don't know if this has a name. Does that make sense? Okay? But what we can do is, since this is a parent reference, we can cast it as a state object. Okay?
So public state.
No, we're not going to do that right here. What we have to do is we are going to have to, let me see if I can. Right now we have a reference called obj, and it can point to any object, all right? What we need to do is we're going to create a state variable that we will just call other, that can point to a state, and in fact it's going to point to the same thing that this guy's pointing to the same object. Okay, so this is what we have to do. We have to say create a state reference variable, we'll call it other, equals that obj guy that we were sent, but we're going to cast it as a state. And so now we can say other.name, other.name. Alright, you want to get really fancy? Okay. So, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines there. What if I told you we could reduce all of those to just one line? Pretty optimal, right? Think about this. It's going to do this comparison, right? If this comparison, string to string, if they're exactly equal, what they're equal, then it's going to give 0, right? And what are we returning? 0. If this compared to this, if the name is before, then it's going to return a negative. And this value is going to be a negative number. And what are we sending back? A negative number. Otherwise, it's going to return a positive number. And what do we want to return? Positive. So why not just return the result of this compare to method? Because if this compare to method gives 0, we're sending back 0. If this compared to gives us negative, we're sending a negative. If it comes back positive, we're sending back a positive. So why even bother with this if statement? Let's just return this statement right there. So watch this. We can actually eliminate all that code.
So we just return name dot compare to other dot name.
Yep.
Obi-Wan has taught you well.
Alright, so that takes care of the compare to. The only thing remaining now is if you look in the United States, there's a spot there for the binary search that needs to be updated. I'll let you take care of those modifications on that. Or maybe we'll look at it tomorrow. I don't know. Sure. Alright, so today we talked about how to modify the binary search as well as how to implement our own compare to method on a custom class. Thanks for watching.